can't wait to bring him back on. He gives me the thumbs up. So we're money on the show. Ian Parker. Ian, what's up, brother? How are you?
Third time's a charm, you know? So sometimes just got to click the unmute button and the sounds and the settings. I've had this same setup for PFL and ESPN for 5 years. I've never touched a button. And I don't know, but we're here, right? So let's do it.
It's us. We're the problem. It's okay.
Yeah, it's us. Just playing Fight Banaz. We're okay with it, my man.
Nah, it was probably me. It probably wasn't you guys. It was probably me.
First and foremost, let's stick there. You said 5 years. How has it been over the 5 years? ESPN, PFL, and everything you've been doing. It's been great to follow your journey and other stuff beforehand and seeing you now. Love watching you from afar, my man. How has it been?
Oh, I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a wild journey, to say the least, right? Going from owning Cage Hero, sponsoring fighters, then to managing guys, bringing someone like Chris Weidman into the UFC when I had no idea what I was even doing, to now kind of being the mainstay for sports betting for both the UFC through ESPN and then the PFL. It's been amazing. You know, on the PFL side, everyone has treated me tremendous. Really have helped me with my growth. And that's what landed me with ESPN. And on the ESPN side, dream come true. I mean, growing up watching SportsCenter, getting to do all this now. And, you know, my parents always told me that the betting thing was not a good idea. And now that I do it for a living, my mom's like, maybe I should place bets. And I'm sitting there going like, yeah, you were yelling at me about those $5 poker tournaments. You know, now it's all fun and games right now. But it's been great. This is truly, I'm very lucky in the situation.
And just tell your mom no parlays and bet on the underdog on female MMA. You'll be good. Just bet female underdogs.
Yeah, no, and the over 2.5. Although, listen, that last card in the Apex was something else, right? We always complain about these Apex cards, and then we get them thrown right in our faces and we lose the argument after 1 week. So I get it.
It's so funny. We were talking about it earlier. People complained about, you know, the Apex cards or not pay-per-views. In April, massive PFL events on Thursdays and Fridays, and then we get sometimes UFC afterwards. It's going to be a great month of April, my man.
Yeah, you know what? The scheduling really worked out. I'm excited. I'm going to be on site for the PFL cards, and I'm going to be on site for the UFC main event in Miami. I live only 45 minutes to an hour away, so right. I love being busy. I love the fact that everyone's doing everything, and you know what? There's just enough MMA for everybody, guys, right? Let's stop getting all upset about who's fighting who. Let's just sit back and enjoy this sport. Just bet on every single fight. Who cares?
I love that. You said you're a betting man. Today, Dave opened the show saying that what was it? December 10th,
2022, this man bet on Darren Till defeat Dricus du Plessis. I had to get it off my chest, Ian. It's a horrible mistake.
Listen, there's been worse bets. Been worse bets. And you want to know something? For a little while, you were looking pretty good.
You're right. A round and a half, I was in there.
You were in there to round 2 until du Plessis was like, you know what? I should probably wrestle a guy that has no jiu-jitsu off his back in Darren Till. So, listen, I'm telling you, I've seen way worse plays. I've been told some of my plays end up being good or bad and vice versa. So, I'm not mad at it, bro. I'm not mad at it.
My question for you, Ian, is what is your worst betting story of all time?
Oh, there's so many. And you know what they say? You remember your losses way more.
You remember the bad beat, the flush on the river. You always remember that. You never remember how you slow played it perfectly. You know,
I've been pushing ESPN to allow me to do a bad beat segment just across the board, not just mine, but in general, right? Because like, imagine having Magomed Ankalaev as the last one in your parlay, and then he gets triangled by Paul Craig. Right? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had a fight to go over 1.5 and 3 seconds in, the guy taps, or, you know, fight to start round 2 and the guy just drops and forgets how to fight. It's rare that it goes the other way in the win form for you. It's usually on the bad luck side, but I've had quite a few really bad ones. I mean, last year, I'll say one of the worst beats. It wasn't that it was so bad. It was just one of those I thought I had in the bag was Raquel Pennington and Juliana Pena. And my prop of the night I gave out was Rocky by decision. And you know what they say in those fights, Dave, you said earlier, it's like death taxes and the fights that go the distance in the women fights, right? Yeah. To that extent. when they read out Juliana Pena, I was sitting there. Me and Chael were sitting there, and he looked at me, and he was just like, man, these judges are just wild. And but then at the same time, though, I was on Santos 2 weeks ago, and Francis Marshall clearly won that fight. So I can't – sometimes it goes the other way with no explanation. So
Right.
Sure.
100%.
We'll get into the PFL here in a quick second. Another just personal question with you, Ian, is like, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years as well. I've been all over the country, interviewed, done some in-ring stuff with some of the biggest people in the world. Her husband's Grant Dawson's been with some of the biggest people in the world. Is there a fighter or two or someone in the media space that you were like, oh, wow, like you got to pinch yourself? It's like, hey, I'm having dinner or I'm on set with this person.
Well, one, you could tell Grant Dawson I said thanks, because when he fought last, that was my Parker, no BS. So either you look that up or you and I are just like this. That was my, what we call as Parker Premium's play. So like my lock of the night was Grant Dawson to win and over 1.5 rounds against Diego Ferreira. He scared me a little bit when he started playing Rock'em Sock'em Robots when all he had to do was wrestle. I was sitting there and everyone was staring at me in the suite, right? Because when you have your biggest play of the night early in the card, you're either going to like chill or you're going to be stressed and catching all the trolls for the next 5 hours, you know, knowing I'm getting on a plane at 3 a.m. to head back home to Florida with the world hating me. I will say that you know what? I try really hard to not act that way, like fanboying out, although I've been such, you know, because I'm been here, I'm there. But I'll tell you, the first time I got to work with Chael Sonnen, who has become one of my best friends that I never expected. I mean, I'm talking about, I get like a FaceTime call from him and he's just in his bathrobe at like 2 a.m. my time. And I will literally sit there and say, what is it? Who's even when I wrestle and when I don't? Dude, he's watching this live. Grant, you were my biggest play. You scared the hell out of me. I'm not going to lie to you. You were dominating. You got tagged, and then you tag him back, and you're playing Rock'em Sock'em. I didn't say your striking looking bad, but you had me sweating. My underwear was so far up me, I was tasting the back of my throat. And what was it, the middle of the second round? Come on, bro. I gave you credit, bro. That's an amazing live comment right there that totally threw me off my tracks. But
sorry.
No. That's perfect. I love this type of stuff. I absolutely love it. No, Grant, you're the man. Huge high ceiling for you, my friend. I think Chael was one of those people because, you know, when you watched him growing up, you kind of saw the bad guy and you saw the persona, but he is like the sweetest guy on planet Earth. I mean, literally, a few weeks ago in Vegas, he brought me to the filming in The Ultimate Fighter where we were at the grappling tournament. And then it was me, him, his son, and his father-in-law, and then our security, whatever, at In-N-Out, right? And I'm sitting there going like, I'm just being able to be friends with this guy. So that was, having that friendship with him has been truly special. He's just, when you talk about those personalities, right? He's up here.
One of one.
It's crazy. Yeah.
He's a one of one.
He's absolutely one of one. But there's been so many people. Like I've got to work with John Anik and you know, as well, like from his podcast, and then getting to work with him in this regard. I mean, that man is truly, credit to his work ethic. There's just no one that works harder than him. It's wild. So.
Love that.
Yeah, we're big fans of Anik as well here, and I know you've worked closely with Akamoto. I know like the UFC's gotten really heavy into like working with like Minty Betts and some of these other betting personalities. Do you like the right? You've made a give me a little giggle there.
Well, first off, shout out to my brother Brett Okamoto. Brett and I have an amazing relationship because Brett and I are such opposites with personalities. And I will tell you that my goal of every show is to make him so comically uncomfortable. I will say things purposely just to get him to crack a smile and laugh. When we're on set together and on site, the dude is actually very funny. And because he's not funny, he's so funny when he does it, right? Yeah. I think it was one time when Jim Miller was fighting for like the 17th month in a row. And it was one of those really bad Apex cards. And I said something to Brett like, how do we talk about Jim Miller without talking about Jim Miller? Which makes no sense. And Brett just lost it. And that warmed my heart. I was like, yes, I cracked him. Yeah. So sorry, what was that last part of the question? Sorry, I lost.
No, I brought up like they've done stuff with Brett, Minty Betts, and I just like, do you like the route that the UFC has gone by incorporating more betting? They partnered with DraftKings, partnering like with Stake. Like, are you a fan of how how blended the sport has become with the betting community?
I think, well, first off, how do I say? So betting is hard in general, right? And when you're giving out advice on TV, you're exposed because if you lose, you're the worst. If you win, you're the best just for that moment. And like Yanni the Greek, for example, he's been around forever doing a lot of other things. And him and I have become good friends over the years because we have such different styles. I mean, I think I look at it from an analytic perspective. Him and Minty all do this. Like they're very big on trends and percentages. And I just don't believe in that in MMA. But I do think it's a very fun element that brings everyone together because let's be realistic, right? When we're watching the Contender Series, nobody's sitting there 3 days before going, I can't wait to see the undefeated guy from Uzbekistan versus the guy from Brazil that hasn't fought in 3 years I've never heard of, right? But everyone's on Twitter going, I'm taking the plus 900 underdog because I don't know who they are. So you're sitting there and you're watching for the race. So I think that's what betting has brought to this sport. It's brought a different level of fandom, more eyes for different reasons. I mean, it's just the way it goes. So I love what they're doing. Honestly, I would love to jump on, with the UFC sometime, but Minty's done a good job. Yanni and Nick do great jobs with their shows. So, and there's room for everybody. I mean, betting, I do my thing on ESPN and PFL. So I think everyone's really great. Everyone I've met. And it's funny when we're all together though, when Yanni and I are together talking different styles, we were at Power Slap, sitting there betting on these guys smacking the heck out of each other. That was wild. But it's I think it's a pretty cool thing. As long as you're in control of your betting, it's a whole different story, but it's a fun environment for sure.
All right.
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was going to say, let's transition into the great PFL.
Exactly what I was
usually I go ladies first. I was taking this over. And once in a while, you just got to show dominance. Thursday, April 3rd, Friday, April 11th, Friday, April 18th, and Thursday, May 1st, all in Orlando, Florida. L. Dawson and myself will be live in Orlando. Seems like you will too, Ian. You said that you were going to be down there in Orlando?
Yes, and normally I do it remote from my studio here at the house. And L, by the way, I'm in Parkland, Florida, so I'm down the road from American Top Team. I know.
I live in Parkland.
Listen, I've been a kept secret in Florida for a long time.
I'm going to DM you, dude, right now.
You and Grant can come over and watch Fight Night here whenever you guys want. By all means, I swear, I've been friends with Dustin and Tiago Alves, his kid and my daughter in the same class together at school.
No way.
Yeah, so I'm right down the road by all means. But yeah, I'm going to be in Orlando because it's a 3-hour drive. Super excited. I spoke with the PFL and they want me on site as much as possible. And it just so happens to coordinate. But the Miami show, for UFC, I'll be there, so I'll do that one remote. But otherwise, so for at least two of the Orlando cards, I will be there on site. And then when they come back to the Hard Rock, I think it's probably August, I will also be on site as well.
How do you love the new format? Let's get into the new knockout format. Are you a fan of it? Did you like what they were doing with the season? How do you love this new format?
All right, so the original one, I think still could have worked, right? I think the issue was that when they got to round 2, there may have been concerns of who would win, who would lose to make it a more attractive playoff situation, right? Because when you're looking at March Madness or any type of playoffs in any sport, the 1 seed plays the 8 seed, 2-7, and so forth. And that wasn't really happening. And I think it was confusing people because it was almost like, what's the point of the ranks, right, in that situation? So what they did was said, listen, let's remove it and let's just do right out the gate. Sorry for the scream. That was probably my daughter yelling at my son, but it's chaotic.
We're live. We're family. I got 4 kids at home. We're on spring break.
God bless you, dude. I got so many locks on the studio door because my daughter will get behind here and start playing like ghost stuff. So we don't let that happen. But yeah, so I mean, I think they simplified it. I think the tournament is fine, and I think the rosters they have, there's some good prospects in there. They do have some seasoned veterans that I think can make a splash and cause a little bit of a stir. And a lot of those guys are good litmus tests, right? So I think, I think the PFL, by doing it this way and trying to kind of start over, bring the 2 rosters together within reason, while trying to manage that champion series that will take place later on, probably summer, whatever it is, there's a lot of potential there still. That's the good part with the PFL. There's a lot of potential.
With all of these new faces in the tournament this year, which I'm stoked to see because I know you've been watching MMA long enough to remember us seeing Chris Wade and Bubba Jenkins fight every single season twice. I'm stoked to see these new faces. What's your most surprising, if you can give it? I don't know what PFL allows you. What's your most surprising pick that you for people for this season out of all the tournament structures?
You mean to like win?
Yeah.
Oh, I can say whatever I want. Don't worry, we're good there. I'm Dave. I've been waiting to come on this show for years, bro. I think you and I have spoken. I've been trying, man. You guys got too big for me. It finally came around. El was like, "Come on." He told the world to bet on Grant. Let's get him on the show. There you go. Man, each division I think has some surprises. I think obviously you got a guy like Ali Talib who won at PFL Mania. This guy's got crazy power in his hands. Now, do I think he beats Magomed Magomedov? Probably not if it gets there. But this just kind of shows that the world is not closed off and that there's so many different parts of where MMA is still being discovered, right? I think someone like him, look at heavyweight, you got Alexander Romanov, who's coming off of 2 wins from the UFC and now jumping in. I would love to see him versus Moldavsky. I think that fight really gives you a good idea of the heavyweight division there. I'm very interested how Impa does going back to middleweight. I think this was always the right weight class for him. I think he got away with it up until running into Dovlet last year, who is just like built like the backyard shed or whatever they call him. I mean, it's tough with with the power there. Let's see who else. There's an alternate at welterweight that I wish was in it named Thad Jean.
I love Thad Jean.
Yeah.
Guys, I will tell you this, and I think he's an alternate. It doesn't mean that he deserves over other people, but he is a prospect, as you know, that won the Challenger Series. He's so young. I don't know how he makes 170. It's crazy. Dude is a beast and young. If he gets in, I would love to see what he does there. Kieran Clark is another guy. It's a very interesting prospect. I'm glad he's getting some shine. And let's see, light heavyweight. Man, I'm such a Razor Rob Wilkinson fan. I think he's so underappreciated. I know he had his situation a couple of years ago, but if you talk to anyone who trains with him, they say he's one of the most underrated, well-rounded, talented guys out there. I mean, you look at him like at a striker, but you can't take the guy down.
Right.
Oh, look at Dovlet. Dovlet fighting him has incredible wrestling and really struggled to get him down. Yeah.
Spot on. So I think with Phil Davis, if Phil Davis doesn't get that takedown early, I think he's going to be in for a little bit of trouble there. And that's a fun matchup as well to kind of right out the gate. You're getting someone in Phil Davis who's got a name behind him, who's had success, a little bit of an up and down once in Bellator. And then you got Wilkinson, who won it, took the year off, got to the semis, and he's getting another chance to really go out there and show the world what he can do. So I'm excited for it.
You touched on Impa, and I want to bring him up because I 100% agree with you. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm not trying to take all the questions from you. But I have to ask a question. Because I agree with you. I think he's been in the wrong weight class, and I think he's belonged at 85. Is it disappointing to you to see him finally getting his shot at 185 the year that the 185-pound tournament might be its other than lightweight, it might be the most stacked division.
Yeah, you know what? It's a fun division. I think that some of the guys in there, like an Aaron Jeffrey, where Jeffrey is good, in imposing his will, taking people down, but can he get Impa down, right, to do that? I think also Josh Silveira is a very similar situation, right? Silveira keeps fighting Impa and losing. Otherwise, he may have won, and now he's going back to his natural weight of 185. Look, Impa's the guy that he knows what's in front of him, right? And this is kind of the position he's in. I think that, to your point, how do I say this the right way? I think if he were to win this season as opposed to winning at 205, this would make his stock value go up that much more because of the level of competition in this weight class. The first year the PFL is doing middleweight. If he carries that same power he did at light heavyweight, along with new speed, I mean, his cardio, the guy doesn't even open his mouth when he breathes in 5 rounds. So it's crazy. So if you see someone like him come out there, do what he did at 205, comes to middleweight, and he's able to just do what he did, it's an exciting time for someone like Impa because I know what ultimately he wants. He wants that Johnny Eblen fight back. Right. And if he goes out there and just tears through middleweight like it's nothing, that also makes that rematch that much more exciting. It gets someone like Johnny Eblen, who I know Eblen wants to fight the best that they possibly can do. And with what's out there, I do think Impa is the most marketable matchup that could come out of that tournament for him.
Let's call it transition in the business. On my notes, I have Johnny Eblin's name in big permanent black marker.
We're like this, dude. It's crazy.
I know. I'm telling you. We're the most positive, I feel like, outlet brand there is. We're always pro fighter and pro, personality. But the one question I will want to ask you, I'll put fire to the coal a little bit. Where are we on Johnny Eblin? What's your take on Eblin and Patchy and Dakota Ditcheva? Maybe the biggest star under the platform, not having anything on the horizon. Maybe there's a championship series. What's next for those kind of superstars?
I mean, I think those questions for me to answer with a ton of specifics would be way above my pay grade. Although I'd love to be that guy to come in here and give you everything, but I'll tell you what I know.
Sure.
My honest opinion, based on what I've heard from upper brass, is that they are going to do the Champion Series. I believe July is the goal, in which they're going to do 2 Champion Series this year, in which those fighters will compete on. So here's the thing when it comes to the laundry list of guys that you mentioned, guys and girls, fighters. Sorry, not trying to genderize that whole thing. It is what it is, right? When the PFL grabbed Bellator, when they bought Bellator, there were a lot of contracts, I'm sure you guys heard about, that were absurd. Let's just call it that way. Very expensive. Hard to justify, not because of how good the fighters are, but because of the return, the deals they have with media. It's hard to like Patchy and Johnny are so expensive, not their fault, it's like good for them, but you can't justify throwing them in the tournament and paying them potentially 4 times in that year. You'll make nothing. So I think the goal for the PFL is to put them in championship fights twice a year for now. I mean, listen, that could always expand. And that's what the Champion Series is for. The tournament will develop either a number 1 contender or another top 5 to build the roster, while the Champion Series will host a champions fight, number 1 contender fight. So I think you're going to see Johnny Eblin defend his belt. Patchy Mix will defend his belt. For Dakota's a very interesting topic, right? Because and you probably see her more than most, right? It's like, what do you like for the PFL right now? I think their biggest challenge is, what do you do for Dakota that's best for Dakota, right? You want to make her a star. You got to give her someone that for her to beat, meaning if she beats that person, it makes her more of a star. Right. Otherwise, if she fights someone like whoever at this point, the world's going to look at the PFL and be like, oh, you're feeding her cans. And that doesn't do anything for Dakota, right? I almost thought what she did last year was a year too soon almost, because that was great competition for where she's sitting at. So, I mean, look, I don't even know what options are out there. Maybe the woman, Paulina, who won the PFL Europe division last year, is someone who could come over and compete with her. I do know that they don't want to wait for the tournament to develop a winner, because then Dakota's going to sit. So right now, I've thrown some ideas out there, some crazy ideas, out of the box ones, because you just I think with Dakota,
How about Rose Namajunas coming from the UFC? Rose Namajunas versus Dakota Ditcheva.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Rose was a free agent, they would have signed her, immediately, to do that type of fight. And I think, but look, right now Rose is still at the UFC, still having her up and downs, and until the UFC feels that Rose doesn't provide that value for her, or is not a litmus test to bring up the next prospect, they're going to hold her. So, look, I hope for Dakota that she gets her Conor Jose Aldo moment in the PFL, because that will because I think everyone sees her skill set, right? It's there. There's no doubt about it. She passed that Tyler Santos litmus test of
colors. Yeah.
Not only can you not get me down, but if you don't get me down, I'm going to absolutely annihilate you and make it look easy. And, even with Jenna Bishop got her down. She stood back up and she just finished it. So, look, I think she's an absolute star. I think she's a star in the making. You just got to get someone to help build her brand and her value, and also to keep her on her toes. You don't want her to get too comfortable where all of a sudden she slips on a banana, no pun intended with the show. And, that wasn't even planned. I'm just that witty right now. But,
not good. Ian, the one and only Ian Parker, all right?
There you go, right?
Last thing for you, my man, and we'll let you run.
You're good.
On the horizon, could be UFC or PFL. Is there something you have your eyes on? Is there Leon Edwards, UFC London as an underdog? That has me very intrigued. Is there something in the next 6 weeks you're like, Dave, keep your eye on this bet?
Well, look, obviously the interesting part about Leon Edwards is how does he bounce back from that Bilal loss? Because that was a bad loss. Let's just call it what it is. He could blame it on the time zone that he lives in. That's crazy, because Bilal had to go through the same thing. But I give him a lot of credit though, because this to me is a similar matchup as Bilal. And if you ask anyone, including Bilal, Sean Brady is an absolute maniac on the mat. I mean, physically strong, can keep you down, and if his striking sets up his takedowns, it's a brutal one. I mean, look, I'd be lying if I wasn't interested in the Volk versus Diego Lopez fight.
Yep.
That's a lot of fun. Does Volk come back here and he take out what he's calling the new generation and do his thing, or is Diego Lopez ready? And then look, then you got the PFL tournament right around the corner. I'm very interested in Jason Jackson versus Koreshkov. I think that's a fight that's flying under the radar for the PFL. Jackson dropped his belt. Then now it's his chance to come back, and he's being featured as the star of the tournament. So there's a lot, man. April's going to be a really, really fun month. Like, we're going to be busy. We're going to be betting. And we're just going to get to enjoy it all. I'm pumped.
Love it. I love it. I'm so pumped. We got a little March Madness here too for the next couple of weeks. Us betting guys are in a good spot for the next month. Ian, man, appreciate you so much. I can't wait. I will definitely, hopefully, shake your hand in Orlando, Florida in the upcoming weeks. Appreciate your time, brother.
Guys, I appreciate you. I'd love to hop on anytime. You guys are awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much, Ian.
There you go. The great Ian Parker. That was good.